As we go along, you see this is the Anclote River, a very wild-looking area. These are abandoned railroad lines. This railroad line went into Tampa. You notice there's a landing strip here. This must be vintage 35 or 40. And it so happens that Barbara and I established our homestead right at that spot. In 1863 to 1867, rebel and Yankee deserters and freebooters escaped into Florida because there was absolutely no law enforcement in the middle of the state. They went all the way down as far as Lake Okeechobee, and they all established their own homesteads. It was easy to make a living, well, relatively easy to make a living, because the Spanish had left some cattle here, and those cattle had continued to multiply, and these freebooters found that they could wrestle out these longhorn cattle, brand them, and sell them to both the Union forces and the rebel forces. They also started a very significant trade with Cuba. There was a port down there across the river from St. Myers that they drive their cattle down there and load them onto schooners, and the schooners would take the cattle to Cuba. 1860s, Jacksonville, and of course St. Augustine, the first city in the United States, these were pretty well developed. Jacksonville is a harbor that is right on the St. Johns River. Steamboats came down from Savannah, entered the St. Johns River, and went all the way as far south as the entranceway to the Kissimmee Valley and the Kissimmee River. That is very far south on the St. Johns River, but that opened up development in that area. In 1881, the state was absolutely broke, and the politicians made a deal. Henry Diston was a manufacturer who had his manufacturing facilities in Philadelphia, where they made Diston saws, and I'm sure a number of you remember how important Diston saws were. If you had a Diston saw, you really were a good carpenter. But Diston and his investment group negotiated to buy 4 million acres for $1 million, and they were given the option of picking out what 4 million acres that was. So imagine what they picked out. Most of the interior of Florida, but including areas down along the East Coast, like Melbourne, down toward Miami, all the center of the state, and the area here around Tarpon Springs. One of the exhibits I have over on the easels is a plat map from 1911 by the Tarpon Springs and Tampa Land Company, and that is an offshoot of the Diston land buy. A lot of the area up in Tarpon Springs, around Tarpon Turtle and that area toward the lake, beautifully laid out brick roads up there that have never been developed. They were put in the 1920s.